The mirror did not lie. Taewon Kim stared at his reflection in the polished metal surface of his quarters aboard the transport ship. Half a face of flesh and blood, half a face of sleek carbon polymer and glinting metal. His right eye, a deep brown that his mother had once called warm as earth, contrasted with the glowing blue sensor that had replaced his left. Engineer Kim, arrival at Archon Station in 30 minutes, the ship's AI announced. Taewon nodded, to nobody. The movement sent a spike of pain through his neural connectors. Neural interface syndrome, the doctors called it. The price of connecting machine to human nerve endings. A small price, they said, for having limbs that worked. Acknowledged, he replied, his voice steady despite the pain. 5 years ago, he had been whole. The pride of Earth's stellar engineering corps. The genius who had figured out how to stabilize quantum fields during faster-than-light travel. The man who made the stars truly reachable. Then came the accident on Europa Station. The quantum stabilizer had failed during a routine test. Most of the team escaped. Taewon had stayed behind, to shut down the core manually. He succeeded, but the energy discharge took his right arm, left leg, and half his face. Earth rebuilt him, made him functional again. But not the same. He picked up the small metal case containing his tools with his left hand, his human hand. His right hand, a marvel of engineering much like his own designs, remained perfectly still at his side. Sometimes it moved without his permission. Other times, it refused to move at all. The door to his quarters slid open. Ambassador Ji Ho-yoon stood there, immaculate in her diplomatic uniform. Her eyes showed no hint of pity when she looked at him, which was why he respected her. Engineer Kim, are you prepared for the meeting? She asked. As prepared as possible, Ambassador, though I doubt the Archons will be prepared for me. Ji-ho did not smile. They requested our best engineer to help review their station designs. You are our best engineer. I know what the Archons think of physical imperfection, Taewon said. They call humans primitive enough as it is. Wait until they see a half-machine human. Admiral Park selected you personally for this mission, Ji-ho replied. She said the Archons need to learn that function matters more than form. Taewon remembered his last conversation with Admiral Hana Park before departure from Earth. They asked for an engineer, not a beauty pageant contestant, the Admiral had told him. The Archons think their physical perfection makes them superior. Show them what humans can do even when broken and rebuilt. The transport ship shuddered slightly as it adjusted course for final approach. Through the small viewport in his quarters, Taewon caught his first glimpse of Archon Station. It was beautiful in its perfect symmetry. A gleaming wheel of silver and white, spinning slowly in orbit around Proxima Centauri, the nearest star to Earth's sun, but still over 4 light-years away. It is impressive, Ji-ho admitted, following his gaze. It is too perfect, Taewon replied. Perfect systems are brittle. They break under pressure. Ji-ho raised an eyebrow. Is that engineering wisdom or personal philosophy? Taewon almost smiled. Both, I think. The final approach alert sounded. Taewon gathered his few belongings and followed the ambassador to the shuttle bay. 4 other human diplomats joined them, all casting curious or concerned glances his way. None had worked with him before. All had heard the stories: brilliant engineer, terrible accident, miraculous recovery, occasional mechanical malfunctions. As they boarded the shuttle, Taewon felt the familiar tremor begin in his right hand. Not now, he thought. The neural interfaces were reacting to his stress. He concentrated on his breathing, trying to calm his mind and body. The tremor continued, his metal fingers tapping an irregular rhythm against his leg. Is there a problem? Engineer Kim? One of the junior diplomats asked nervously. No problem, Taewon replied calmly, though the tremor worsened. Just a conversation between man and machine. The machine is winning at the moment. The shuttle launched smoothly from the transport ship and glided toward the Archon station. Through the viewport, Taewon could now see the incredible detail of the station's construction. No visible seams or connections. No evidence of assembly. It looked grown rather than built. The Archons have achieved remarkable advances in unified construction techniques, he said to nobody in particular. Their outer hull appears to be a single piece. They are very proud of their technology, Jiho replied, almost as proud as they are of their physical form. The shuttle docked with barely a sound or sensation of impact. Perfect engineering, Taewon thought. Almost too perfect. As the airlock cycled, Taewon forced his trembling hand to still. Pain shot up his arm as he overrode the glitching neural connections, but his face showed nothing. Years of living with constant pain had taught him to hide it well. The airlock door slid open to reveal 3 Archons waiting to greet them. Taewon had seen images before, but they did not capture the reality. The Archons stood nearly 7 feet tall, with perfectly proportioned bodies and features that seemed designed rather than evolved. Their skin had a porcelain quality that seemed to glow from within. Their eyes were large, silver, and showed no whites, just metallic irises that shifted and adjusted like camera lenses. The central Archon stepped forward, movements graceful and precise. Ambassador Yoon, welcome to Archon Station. I am Seung-ho, Chief Diplomat for Human Relations. Then Seung-ho's silver eyes found Taewon, widening slightly. The perfect face showed a momentary flash of something, surprise perhaps, or revulsion, before returning to neutral politeness. And this is, Seung-ho began, voice trailing off as he stared at the meeting point of flesh and metal on Taewon's face. Engineer Taewon Kim, Jiho introduced firmly, the leading expert in quantum field manipulation and the designer of Earth's most advanced faster-than-light drive systems. The 3 Archons exchanged glances. Their faces remained composed, but Taewon could read the silent communication. He had seen such looks before, even on human faces. The look that asked, how can something broken create something of value? We're told to expect your most accomplished engineer, Seung-ho said carefully. You are looking at him, Taewon replied, stepping forward. As he did, his artificial leg made a slight mechanical sound. The Archon's eyes darted down toward it, then quickly back up. I see, Seung-ho said, though his tone suggested he did not see at all. We have prepared accommodations for your delegation. Please follow. As they walked through the gleaming white corridors of the station, Taewon noticed how the Archons kept precisely equal distance from each other, perfect spacing, perfect rhythm to their steps. Even their breathing seemed synchronized. His right hand began to tremble again. This time he did not try to stop it. The room assigned to Taewon was as perfect as everything else on the Archon station. White walls curved seamlessly into the ceiling. Lights adjusted automatically to his movements. The temperature remained exactly 22 degrees Celsius, which Earth studies had determined was optimal for human comfort. Taewon placed his small bag on the bed and ran his human hand along the wall. Smooth, flawless, no visible joins or seams. He tapped it with his metal knuckles and listened to the faint ring. Interesting, he muttered to himself. Not just for show. A soft chime announced a visitor. The door slid open to reveal Ambassador Jiho. The welcome reception begins in 1 hour, she said. How are you settling in? Taewon gestured to the room. Everything is perfect. Too perfect. Jiho stepped inside, allowing the door to close behind her. I have been briefed on the Archon leadership. Seung-ho is their equivalent of a senior diplomat, but he reports directly to their Council of Form. They make all major decisions. Council of Form, Taewon repeated. Even their government is named after appearance. The Archons believe physical perfection reflects mental and moral perfection, Jiho explained. This is their first close contact with cybernetically enhanced humans. Taewon nodded. I noticed. They could barely look at me. You are here as an engineer, not as a cultural ambassador, Jiho reminded him. Focus on the technical exchanges. Let me handle the diplomacy. After she left, Taewon removed his jacket and examined his right arm. The connection point at his shoulder ached from the stress of the journey. He ran a basic diagnostic using the small tool set he always carried. Everything functioned within normal parameters, but the pain remained. It always did. He dressed carefully in his formal Earth Stellar Corps uniform, making sure the sleeve covered most of his metal arm. Not out of shame, but out of practicality. No need to distract the Archons more than necessary. The reception hall was a large circular room with a clear dome ceiling showing the stars above. Taewon counted 12 Archons and the 5 humans from Earth's delegation, standing in small groups. When he entered, conversations paused briefly before resuming at a lower volume. Ambassador Ji-ho waved him over to where she stood with Seung-ho and another Archon. "Engineer Kim, please join us," she said. Seung-ho was just explaining their quantum communication system. Seung-ho inclined his head slightly. "We understand you have expertise in quantum field manipulation." "Some," Taewon replied modestly. "I specialized in stabilization during faster-than-light travel." The second Archon, who had remained silent, suddenly spoke. "How can you manipulate quantum fields with imprecise tools?" Taewon looked down at his cybernetic hand. "You mean this?" "Mireille is our lead quantum engineer," Seung-ho explained quickly. "She's naturally curious about different approaches." Mireille was slightly smaller than Seung-ho, with silver eyes that seemed to analyze everything they saw. Unlike the other Archons, she did not look away from Taewon's cybernetic parts, but studied them openly. "My tools are not imprecise," Taewon said calmly. "They are differently precise. My cybernetic components can detect and respond to quantum fluctuations that organic tissue cannot sense." "Fascinating," Mireille replied, though her tone suggested doubt rather than admiration. "Perhaps you would like to observe our quantum communication hub tomorrow. We have achieved perfect synchronization across 3 star systems." "I would be honored," Taewon said. The conversation turned to diplomatic matters, and Taewon took the opportunity to observe the room. The Archons moved with fluid grace, their bodies seemingly incapable of awkward movements. When they spoke to each other, they maintained exact eye contact and precise distances, everything measured, everything controlled. A server approached with drinks balanced on a floating tray. Taewon reached for one with his human hand, but the tray shifted unexpectedly. He quickly compensated with his cybernetic arm, catching a falling glass before it could shatter on the floor. The movement was faster than any human reflex could have managed. Several Archons nearby stepped back in surprise. "Good catch," Ji-ho commented. Mireille was watching him with heightened interest. "Your reaction time exceeds normal human capability." Taewon placed the glass back on the tray. "One of the benefits of being broken and rebuilt." The reception ended early. The Archons, despite their diplomatic training, seemed uncomfortable with prolonged exposure to the humans, particularly Taewon. As the room emptied, Seung-ho approached him once more. "Engineer Kim, I must speak plainly," he said. "Your presence here is challenging for many of my colleagues." Taewon nodded. "I understand." "Do you?" Seung-ho asked. "For generations, the Archon Confederacy has worked to perfect our physical form. We have eliminated disease, corrected genetic flaws, extended our lives. To see a being who is deliberately part machine is difficult for us to comprehend." "I did not choose to become this way," Taewon replied evenly. "But having become this way, I choose to continue my work." Seung-ho seemed about to say more, then thought better of it. "The engineering tour begins at Station Dawn. Mireille will guide you." Taewon returned to his quarters and immediately removed his formal uniform. The neural connectors at his shoulder joint were sending sharp signals of pain down both his organic nerves and electronic pathways. He sat on the edge of the bed running another diagnostic. A notification appeared in his cybernetic eye's display. "Neural interface stress detected. Recommend rest cycle." "Not yet," he muttered. Taewon had noticed something during the reception. A subtle vibration in the floor plating, almost too faint to detect. His cybernetic leg had sensors designed to help him maintain balance on unstable surfaces, and those sensors had picked up a rhythm that seemed out of place with the station's normal operations. He pulled out his personal data pad and transferred the readings from his leg. The vibration pattern showed regular peaks and valleys, occurring approximately every 17.3 minutes. "Computer, access station schematics provided by Archon Diplomatic Corps," he said. The schematic appeared as a hologram, above his datapad. Detailed but sanitized for diplomatic sharing. It showed the major systems, life support, gravity generation, power distribution, but lacked specific technical details. Still, it was enough to start forming a hypothesis. The vibration pattern matched what he would expect from a quantum field generator experiencing microfractures in its stabilization array. Taewon frowned. If he was right, the Archon's perfect station had a serious flaw, one that his uniquely sensitive cybernetic parts had detected, but their organic perfection had missed. He would need more data to be certain, and the upcoming engineering tour would be the perfect opportunity to gather it. The next morning, Taewon met Mireille outside the humans' quarters. She wore the same white uniform as the day before, indistinguishable from what the other Archons wore. "You appear to be in discomfort," she observed immediately. Taewon had tried to hide his pain, but the Archon's perception was keen. Neural interface syndrome. The connection between organic and inorganic sometimes creates feedback. "And you tolerate this permanently?" Mireille asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. "I adapt," Taewon replied simply. The engineering tour began. In the control center, a circular room with holographic displays showing every system on the station. Archon engineers moved between workstations with practiced efficiency, their movements as perfect as dancers. "Our quantum communication system allows instantaneous connection between all Archon worlds," Mireille explained. "We have eliminated the light speed barrier for information transfer." "Impressive," Taewon said, and meant it. Earth has achieved something similar, but not with this level of stability. As they moved deeper into the station's systems, Taewon's cybernetic sensors continued gathering data. The vibrations were stronger here, closer to the power core. His suspicions grew. "Your quantum stabilization array," he said carefully. "May I ask how often it undergoes maintenance?" Mireille seemed surprised by the question. "It requires no maintenance. We designed it to function perfectly for the station's 100-year operational lifespan." Perfect again, Taewon thought. Perfect and therefore brittle. "Would you permit me to run a diagnostic?" he asked. "I have some experience with quantum stabilizers." Mireille hesitated. "Our systems are not compatible with human technology." "I wouldn't need to connect any external devices," Taewon explained. "My cybernetic components can passively scan for quantum fluctuations." Mireille's silver eyes widened slightly. "You would use your body parts as diagnostic tools?" "Yes, it's one advantage of being part machine." Mireille seemed to struggle internally before responding. "I must consult with Shung-ho before allowing such an unusual procedure." As they continued the tour, Taewon became increasingly certain. The perfect Archon station was headed for catastrophic failure, and soon. Taewon spent the night analyzing the data his cybernetic limbs had collected. Sleep did not come easily with the constant pain from his neural interfaces, so he worked. The patterns were clear now. The quantum stabilization array was developing, microfractures, small imperfections that would grow into catastrophic failures. His cybernetic eye projected the calculations onto the wall of his quarters. 3 days, maybe 4. Then the quantum fields would collapse, creating a cascade failure throughout the station. At best, power loss. At worst, a containment breach that would kill everyone aboard. Morning came, announced by a gradual brightening of his room's lighting. Taewon prepared his evidence and went to find Ambassador Ji-ho. "You are certain?" she asked after he explained his findings. "As certain as I can be without direct access to their systems," Taewon replied. "The vibration pattern matches quantum destabilization. I have seen it before." Ji-ho tapped her fingers on the table. "The Archons will not appreciate being told their perfect station is flawed, especially by—" She stopped herself, but Taewon finished the thought. "By someone they consider broken." "Yes, I know." Ji-ho nodded. "I will arrange a meeting with Shung-ho. Present your findings calmly, with evidence. No speculation. 2 hours." Later, Taewon sat across from Shung-ho in a small conference room. Mireille stood silently beside her superior, her silver eyes fixed on the data projected between them. Impossible, Seung-ho said when Taiwan finished his presentation. Our quantum stabilization array was designed for perfect operation. There can be no flaws. The data suggests otherwise, Taiwan replied calmly. The vibration pattern indicates microfractures forming in the stabilization matrix. And you detected this with your mechanical parts? Seung-ho's voice held barely disguised distaste. Yes. My cybernetic leg contains sensors designed to detect subtle changes in surface stability. They picked up the vibration pattern. Mi-Ray stepped forward. The human may have detected something, but the interpretation is flawed. Our systems run continuous diagnostics. No errors have been reported. Your diagnostics may not be calibrated to detect this particular pattern, Taewon suggested. It begins as a subtle resonance before developing into visible fractures. Seung-ho stood, ending the meeting. Thank you for your concern, Engineer Kim. We will review our diagnostics as a precaution. That will be all. As Taiwan left the conference room, he heard Mi-Ray speak quietly to Seung-ho. Should we not at least check the stabilizer visually? We do not take engineering advice from incomplete beings, Seung-ho replied firmly. Taewon returned to his quarters, frustrated but not surprised. The Archon's belief in their own perfection blinded them to potential problems. He reported the outcome to Ambassador Jiho, who promised to continue pressing the issue through diplomatic channels. That night, the pain in his neural interfaces grew worse. His right hand trembled constantly, and his cybernetic leg occasionally locked mid-step. The stress of the situation was affecting his systems, or perhaps it was something else. Taewon ran another diagnostic and found something alarming. His cybernetic parts were reacting to increased quantum instability in the station. The microfractures were growing faster than he had calculated. The next morning, as he sat in the common area with the other humans, the lights flickered briefly. Power surge? One of the junior diplomats asked. No, Taewon said quietly. It's beginning. Before he could explain further, an announcement came over the station's communication system. Attention all personnel. Minor power fluctuations detected. Engineering teams are responding. Continue normal operations. Ambassador Jiho looked at Taiwan. How much time? Less than I thought. Hours, not days. Throughout the day, the power fluctuations continued, growing more frequent. Taewon noticed the Archons moving with less of their usual grace, their perfect composure showing cracks of concern. Late in the afternoon, as Taewon sat in his quarters monitoring the increasing vibrations through his cybernetic leg, his door chimed. Mi-Ray stood outside, her silver eyes troubled. Engineer Kim, may I speak with you? Taewon invited her in. She stood rigidly just inside the doorway. Our diagnostics have found nothing, she said. But the fluctuations continue. How? Did you know? Taewon gestured to his cybernetic leg. These parts were designed to work in unstable conditions. They detect subtle changes that standard equipment might miss. Mi-Ray stepped closer, examining his leg with professional curiosity rather than the usual Archon disgust. The accident that caused your condition. What happened? Quantum stabilizer failure, Taewon replied. Much like what's happening here, but on a smaller scale. I stayed behind to shut it down manually. Mi-Ray's eyes widened. You willingly remained in danger? Someone had to. Before Mi-Ray could respond, the lights went out completely. Emergency lighting activated a moment later, bathing the room in dim red. The station's communication system crackled. All personnel report to emergency stations. Containment failure detected in the quantum stabilization array. Mi-Ray's perfect composure finally broke. This is not possible. Our systems are perfect. Perfect systems still fail, Taewon said, rising to his feet. Take me to the stabilization array. I may be able to help. Mi-Ray hesitated only briefly before nodding. Follow me. They moved quickly through the station's corridors, now crowded with Archons moving in controlled but urgent patterns. The perfect Order of the station was dissolving into controlled chaos. The quantum engineering section was sealed off, a red warning hologram floating before the doors. "Override access, Engineer Mi-Ray," she said to the security system. "Emergency protocol." The Liu. Door slid open to reveal a scene of frantic activity. Archon engineers moved between workstations, their perfect movements now rushed and uncoordinated. In the center of the room, a large cylindrical chamber housed the quantum stabilization array. Even through the thick shielding, Taiwan could see the blue energy inside pulsing erratically. An Archon engineer approached Mi-Ray. "The containment field is failing. Estimated collapse in 42 minutes. "Evacuation?" Mi-Ray asked. "Begun. But we cannot evacuate everyone in time. And if the field collapses completely, the resulting energy release could damage the star itself." Taiwan stepped forward. "Let me see the system controls." The Archon engineer looked at Mi-Ray in shock. Mi-Ray nodded firmly. "Show him." The main control console displayed a complex series of quantum field patterns. To the Archons, they would appear as abstract mathematical representations, but to Taiwan, with his cybernetic eye interpreting the data, they were as clear as a physical object. "The problem is worse than I thought," he said after studying the display. "The fractures have created a feedback loop in the quantum field. It's not just failing, it's collapsing inward." "What does that mean?" Mi-Ray asked. "It means when it fails, it will create a temporary microsingularity, a tiny black hole that will consume the station before collapsing itself." The Archon engineers stared at him in disbelief. "How can you understand this?" Mi-Ray finally asked. "Our best engineers cannot predict the collapse pattern." Taiwan tapped his cybernetic eye. "Direct quantum field visualization. I don't just see the data, I see the fields themselves." A loud alarm sounded as another power surge hit the station, stronger than before. The lights flickered as the emergency generators struggled to compensate. "We need to stabilize the field. Immediately," Taiwan said. "I need direct access to the control systems." "Impossible," one of the Archon engineers objected. "No non-Archon has ever—" Mi-Ray cut him off. "Give him access." As the Archons reluctantly stepped aside, Taiwan placed his hands on the control interface. His cybernetic hand connected directly with the system, metal fingers spreading across the smooth surface. Through his neural interface, he could feel the quantum fields shifting and buckling. The pain was intense, but he pushed through it, focusing on the patterns of energy flow. "Your approach won't work," he told the Archon engineers. "You're trying to force the fields back into perfect alignment, but the damage is too severe. We need a different approach." Mi-Ray stepped closer, watching as his human and cybernetic hands worked in different but complementary ways across the controls. "What do you suggest?" she asked. "Something the Archons may find difficult to accept," Taiwan replied, his voice strained as he fought through the pain of his neural interfaces. "We need to introduce deliberate asymmetry into the field." The station shuddered around them as another power surge hit. Time was running out. Mi-Ray looked at the failing systems, then back at Taiwan. The perfect Archon engineer and the broken human stood together at the breaking point. "Tell me what to do," she said. The engineering bay shook as another power surge rolled through the station. Warning lights flashed across every console. Archon engineers moved with increasing urgency, their usual perfect grace giving way to efficient desperation. "Explain what you mean by asymmetry," Mi-Ray said, standing beside Taiwan at the main control interface. Taiwan's cybernetic eye projected calculations into the air between them. "Your stabilization array is designed around perfect balance, equal forces in all directions. But the fractures have created weak points. Trying to maintain symmetry is putting too much pressure on those points." He gestured to the cylindrical chamber where blue energy swirled and pulsed erratically. "We need to create deliberate imbalance. Redirect energy away from the fracture points by making the field stronger in some areas and weaker in others." The lead Archon engineer, Jun-Hee, stepped forward. "Impossible. Our entire system is built on perfect symmetry. Deliberate imbalance would violate every principle of Archon engineering." "Your principles may be what's causing the failure," Taiwan replied. keeping his voice calm despite the pain flaring through his neural interfaces. Perfect symmetry works well in stable conditions, but when flaws develop, that same perfection becomes dangerous. The station shuddered again. A console nearby sparked and went dark. 28 minutes until complete field collapse, an Archon technician announced. Mireille looked at the failing systems, then at Junhei. We must try his approach. We have no alternatives. Junhei's perfect face showed the first signs of fear Taiwan had seen in an Archon. The Council of Form will never approve such a fundamental violation of our engineering principles. The Council will not matter if we are all dead, Mireille replied sharply. Engineer Kim, what do you need? Taiwan moved quickly to the main quantum field control station. Direct neural interface access to the control systems. My cybernetic components can process the quantum patterns faster than any external input device. Junhei stepped back in shock. You want to connect your machine parts directly to our systems? That is unthinkable. We don't have time for prejudice, Taiwan said firmly. This station has less than 30 minutes before catastrophic failure. Mireille made the decision. Give him access now. Two Archon technicians reluctantly prepared a neural interface connection. Taiwan removed his jacket and rolled up his sleeve, exposing the full extent of his cybernetic arm. Several Archons looked away, uncomfortable with the sight of the metal and composite materials meeting flesh at his shoulder. The pain will be significant, Taiwan warned as they prepared to connect him. Neural interface directly to quantum systems is not standard procedure. You have done this before? Mireille asked. Once, during the accident that took my arm. Before Mireille could respond, the door to the engineering bay slid open. Seung Ho entered, followed by Ambassador Ji Ho and two members of the Archon Council of Form. Their silver eyes widened at the scene before them. What is happening here? One of the council members demanded. Mireille stepped forward. Council member Do-yeon, the quantum stabilization array is failing. Engineer Kim has proposed a solution. Seung Ho looked at the exposed cybernetic arm and the neural interface connections being prepared. This is unacceptable. We do not allow non-Archon technology to connect directly with our systems. The station will be destroyed within 27 minutes if we do not act, Mireille replied. Ambassador Ji Ho joined the conversation. My government will accept full responsibility for any consequences of Engineer Kim's actions, but we must act now. Councilmember Do-yeon studied Taiwan with silver eyes that seemed to see through him. You propose to deliberately create imbalance in our quantum fields? Yes, Taiwan said simply. Perfect symmetry is making your system brittle. Asymmetry will allow it to adapt to the damage that has already occurred. Perfection is our way, Do-yeon stated. It has guided our civilization for millennia. Perfection is static, Taiwan replied. Life is adaptable. Even stars are not perfectly symmetrical. They have solar flares, sunspots, irregular magnetic fields. Their imperfections are what allow them to burn for billions of years. Another violent shudder ran through the station. The lights failed, completely for several seconds before emergency power restored dim illumination. We have no more time for debate, Mireille said firmly. I take full responsibility for this decision. Do-yeon looked at the failing systems, then back at Taiwan. Proceed. But the Council will remember this violation of our principles. The Archon technicians quickly finished preparing the neural interface. Taiwan sat in the control chair and nodded to Mireille. When I connect, I'll need you to monitor the quantum field harmonics. If they spike above 7.3, you'll need to disconnect me immediately. What happens if they spike above that level? Mireille asked. My neural interfaces will burn out, possibly along with my organic nervous system. Mireille's perfect composure faltered. You risk permanent damage? Yes, but we have no choice. The technicians activated the connection. Taiwan's body stiffened as pain flooded through his neural pathways. His cybernetic eye glowed brighter, the blue light reflecting off the faces of the watching Archons. His metal fingers spread across the control interface, sinking partially into the smooth surface as the systems recognized the connection. Through the pain, Taewon could see the quantum fields directly, not as abstract data or mathematical formulas, but as living, flowing patterns of energy, beautiful in their complexity, and severely damaged. Beginning asymmetric field restructuring, he said through gritted teeth, redirecting energy flow to compensate for fracture points. On the main display, the Archons watched as their perfect symmetrical field patterns began to shift and change. Where before all energy flows had been exactly balanced, now some grew stronger while others weakened. The perfect circle of the field transformed into an irregular pulsing shape. "This is wrong," Junhee whispered, horrified. "All balance is being lost." "No," Taewon managed to say despite the pain. "Not lost, redefined." On the monitors, the warning indicators began to change. The catastrophic failure countdown slowed, then stopped. "Field collapse has been halted," Mireille announced, her voice containing a note of wonder. "The system is adapting to the new configuration." Taewon continued working through the neural interface, his human hand now gripping the arm of the chair tightly as pain coursed through his body. His cybernetic parts glowed with excess energy as they processed the quantum data. "Now comes the difficult part," he said. "We need to stabilize this new pattern, make the asymmetry permanent, but controlled." For the next 20 minutes, Taewon guided the Archon engineers through a complete reconfiguration of their quantum stabilization array. Where their original design had been based on perfect symmetry, the new configuration embraced controlled imbalance. Stronger fields protected weakened areas. Irregular energy flows created self-reinforcing patterns. Finally, the main status display turned from red to green. "Field stabilization achieved," Mireille announced. "Collapse averted." The Archon technicians disconnected Taewon from the neural interface. He slumped in the chair, exhausted. Blood trickled from his nose, and his cybernetic arm hung limp at his side, temporarily overloaded. Ambassador Jiho hurried to his side. "Taewon, are you all right?" "I'll live," he said weakly. "Neural interface overload. Temporary." Council member Duyan approached, studying the displays showing the new field configuration. "This pattern, it is chaotic, unbalanced, but stable," Mireille pointed out. "More stable than our original perfect design." "How can imperfection create greater stability?" Junhee asked, bewildered. Taewon slowly sat up straighter, wiping the blood from his face. "Perfection leaves no room for adaptation. When damage occurs, a perfect system can only break. An imperfect system can bend, adjust, compensate." He gestured to his own cybernetic parts with his still-functioning human hand. "I am not perfect. Half machine, half human. Always in pain. But adaptable. When one system fails, the other compensates." Duyan's silver eyes narrowed slightly. "You suggest we should embrace imperfection? Abandon the principles that have guided our civilization for millennia?" "I suggest balance between perfection and adaptation," Taewon replied. "Not symmetry, but harmony." The engineering bay had grown crowded. More Archons had arrived, drawn by news of the crisis and its unusual resolution. They stared at the displays showing the asymmetrical fields, and at the broken human who had created them. Mireille stepped forward, addressing the gathering. "Engineer Kim's solution has not only saved our station, but revealed a fundamental flaw in our approach. Perhaps there is wisdom in different perspectives, in different forms." Seung-ho looked uncomfortable but nodded slowly. "The council will need to review all of this, but for now, we acknowledge that the immediate crisis has been averted, thanks to Engineer Kim's unique capabilities." Taewon tried to stand, but his cybernetic leg had also been affected by the neural overload. Mireille quickly moved to support him. "You require maintenance," she said, using the Archon term for medical attention. "I require rest," Taewon corrected gently. "The systems will reset themselves." As Mireille helped him from the engineering bay, Taewon noticed something he had not seen before on an Archon station. Uncertain faces, questioning eyes, the beginnings of Adi. 3 weeks had passed since the quantum stabilization crisis. The Archon station continued to orbit Proxima Centauri, its systems now operating on Taiwan's asymmetrical principles. The vibrations in the floor had stopped. The power fluctuations were gone. The station was more stable than it had ever been, despite or perhaps because of its new imperfections. Taiwan stood at the viewport in his quarters, looking out at the red dwarf star. His cybernetic systems had finally recovered from the neural interface overload. The pain remained as it always did, but the functionality had returned. The door chimed. Ambassador Jiho entered when he called for her to come in. "The negotiations are complete," she said. "The technology exchange treaty has been signed. Earth and the Archon Confederacy are officially allies." Taiwan nodded, still looking at the star. "That's good news." "It would not have happened without you," Jiho said. "Not just because you saved the station. Your work on the quantum stabilizer has convinced the Archons that humans have valuable perspectives." "Even broken humans?" Taiwan asked with a small smile. "Especially broken ones, it seems." Jiho handed him a datapad. "This just came through from Earth Command. Admiral Park sends her congratulations." Taiwan scanned the message, then looked up in surprise. "They want me to stay here? As a permanent advisor to the Archon Engineering Corps?" "It was the Archons who requested it, not Earth," Jiho explained. "Specifically, the Council of Form made the request. Apparently your ideas about asymmetry and adaptation have caused quite a stir in their scientific community." Taiwan looked back at the star. "I had expected to return home." "The choice is yours," Jiho said. "But consider this. You may be able to do more good here than on Earth. The Archons are beginning to question thousands of years of principles based on your example." Before Taiwan could respond, the door chimed again. Mi-Ray stood outside, her silver eyes bright with barely contained excitement. "Engineer Kim, the Council requests your presence in the observation chamber," she said. "Something important is happening." Taiwan followed Mi-Ray through the corridors of the station. He noticed subtle changes since the crisis. The Archons still moved with grace, but their formations were less rigid. Some walked alone, rather than in perfect groups, and they no longer stepped aside when he passed, cybernetic parts visible. The observation chamber was a large dome at the top of the station, offering a panoramic view of space. Inside, the entire Archon diplomatic corps had assembled, including Seung-ho and all three members of the Council of Form. Duyan stepped forward as Taiwan entered. "Engineer Kim, thank you for coming." "What's happening?" Taiwan asked, noting the formal atmosphere. Mi-Ray gestured to the main viewing screen, which showed a distant star system. "This is Archon Prime, our home system. The primary star is aging. For centuries, we have used quantum manipulation to extend its life, but our efforts have shown diminishing returns in recent decades." Seung-ho continued, "Our approach has always been based on perfect symmetry, balancing the fusion forces within the star to maintain ideal output. But after witnessing your solution to our station's crisis, some of our scientists proposed a radical idea." The display zoomed in on the star, showing a complex network of orbital platforms surrounding it. Data scrolled beside the image, showing energy readings and stellar conditions. 3 days ago, we implemented an asymmetrical quantum field around a small section of our sun, Mi-Ray explained, using principles derived from your approach. Duyan's voice was solemn. "We expected marginal improvements at best. Many on the council opposed the experiment entirely." "And?" Taiwan asked, though he suspected the answer from their expressions. Mi-Ray's face showed a rare Archon smile. "The results were beyond our expectations. Fusion efficiency improved by 17% in the test area. The star's magnetic field has begun to self-regulate in ways our symmetric approach never achieved." The display changed to show before and after readings. Even with his limited understanding of Archon measurements, Taiwan could see the dramatic improvement. "We have been perfect for so long," Duyan said quietly, "that we forgot how to adapt. Our stars were dying because we insisted on imposing our idea of perfection upon them. Sung-ho stepped forward. The Council has authorized a full implementation of asymmetrical quantum fields around Archon Prime, but we lack experience with such techniques. We require guidance. Taewon understood what they were asking. You want me to help implement this approach across your entire star system? Not just Archon Prime, Mirai said. All 7 star systems in the Archon Confederacy show similar signs of aging. What we learn from you could save billions of lives across our worlds. Taewon felt the weight of their request. To stay here, among beings who had initially seen him as broken and inferior. To work with them to save their stars. To teach them that imperfection could be strength. In human history, he said after a moment, we have often found that our greatest advances came not from achieving perfection, but from embracing our limitations and finding new ways to overcome them. He gestured to his cybernetic arm. When I lost my limbs, I could have given up. Instead, I adapted, became something different than I was before. Not perfect, but whole in a new way. Duyan nodded slowly. Perhaps our civilization needs to learn this lesson as well. I will stay, Taewon decided, on one condition. Name it, Sung-ho said. The technologies we develop must be shared with Earth as well. Both our worlds face aging stars. Both can benefit from what we learn. Duyan looked to the other council members who nodded their agreement. We accept your condition. The knowledge will be shared between our peoples. Later that evening, as the human delegation prepared to depart without him, Taewon stood with Ambassador Jiho in the docking bay. Admiral Park will be pleased, Jiho said. This alliance could change the future of both our species. It already has, Taewon replied, watching as Mirai approached from across the bay. The Archons are beginning to see that diversity brings strength, that imperfection allows for growth, Jiho smiled. And humans are learning that our adaptability is our greatest asset. She offered her hand. Good luck, Engineer Kim. Make us proud. After the Earth shuttle departed, Mirai joined Taewon at the viewport. Together they watched the transport. Ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, using the very quantum field technology Taewon had helped develop. Your new quarters are ready, Mirai said. More suitable for long-term residence. With adaptations for my cybernetic needs? Taewon asked. Yes, and the engineering bay has been reconfigured to accommodate your unique interface requirements. They walked together through the station, an unusual sight. The perfect Archon and the broken human side by side. I have been authorized to show you the full stellar engineering plans, Mirai said as they entered a new section of the station. The techniques we have used, and where they have fallen short. And I will show you how imperfection can sometimes be the answer, Taewon replied. Mirai stopped walking and turned to face him directly. Before the crisis, we saw you as incomplete, as something to be pitied or avoided. I wish to apologize for this perception. Taewon shook his head. No apology needed. Perspectives change when circumstances demand it. Both our peoples have much to learn from each other. They continued to the observation deck, where the red light of Proxima Centauri filled the room. In its glow, Taewon's cybernetic parts gleamed alongside Mirai's perfect form. Different but complementary. The council has a saying, Mirai said as they looked at the star. Perfect form reflects perfect function. For thousands of years, we believed this was absolute truth. And now? Taewon asked. Now we consider that perhaps wholeness comes not from perfection, but from integration, from finding strength in our differences. Taewon nodded, watching the star's surface shift and change, natural asymmetry creating stable, sustainable fusion. Stars were not perfect. They had flares and storms and irregular magnetic fields, yet they burned for billions of years, giving life to worlds around them. His neural interface sent a familiar spike of pain down his spine, a reminder of his broken body, but also a reminder of how that brokenness had allowed him to see solutions others could not. Mirai noticed his momentary discomfort. Does it always hurt? Yes, Taewon admitted. But the pain reminds me that I am still here, still adapting, still whole in my own way. Together, the broken human and the perfect Archon watched the imperfect star burn. And in its light, both saw a new future, for themselves, for their peoples, and for the aging stars that awaited their help. Not perfect, but whole.